What if I told you there was an NHL player who mastered puck control so well that it seemed as though he could never lose possession? A player who skated with such grace and skill that he scored 512 goals and 814 assists, became a Calder Trophy winner, a Stanley Cup finalist, and a Hall of Famer? This player is, of course, none other than Gilbert Perreault. To find out how he was able to become one of the most skilled players of all time, despite playing for an expansion team, we need to go back to Victoriaville, Quebec in the early 60s. If you love hockey history, you're in the right place. Hit subscribe right now because we post new stories about legendary players. You won't want to miss what's coming next. All right, now let's see how a kid from Victoriaville became one of hockey's most exciting players ever. Throughout this time, Perreault and his childhood friends were playing hockey on frozen ponds and backyard rinks across Quebec, where a unique style of hockey was taking shape. Quebec players were known for their fast, skillful way of playing, very different from the rough, physical game that was popular in other parts of Canada. This style was exactly what the NHL needed, as the league was growing bigger in 1970 with two new teams joining, the Buffalo Sabres and Vancouver Canucks. Back then, expansion teams usually struggled badly in their first few years because they had to build their teams from scratch. The older teams got to keep their best players, leaving the new teams to pick from what was left. But there was one thing that could change everything for a new team: getting the first pick in the draft. In 1970, this turned into one of the most dramatic moments in NHL history when the Sabres and Canucks had to spin a wheel to decide who would pick first. The prize they were fighting for was Gilbert Perreault, a junior hockey player who was being called the next Jean Beliveau for his smooth skating and incredible scoring ability. The pressure was huge. Whichever team won would get a player who could change their future. For Buffalo, a brand new hockey city trying to build a fan base, getting a superstar player could make or break their success. They didn't just need a good player, they needed someone special who could make people excited about hockey in a place where it wasn't the biggest sport. They needed someone who could do things on the ice that would make people want to come back and watch more. The Sabres won the spin, making Perreault their first ever draft pick. Despite his undeniable talent, some hockey experts worried his fancy playing style wouldn't fit in the NHL, where tough, physical play dominated. At 6 feet 1 inch and 185 pounds, he wasn't small, but he wasn't built like the tough players who ruled the game at that time. However, Sabres coach Punch Imlach saw something special in Perreault. He's not just quick, he's smart, Imlach said. He knows where to go before anyone else does. Imlach, who had coached the great Maple Leafs teams of the 1960s, believed Perreault could change the way hockey was played. Perreault's first NHL game showcased both his talent and the challenges he would face. He scored a goal in his debut, but also took several hard hits. The veterans tested the rookie, trying to see if they could break him under pressure. Instead of backing down, Perreault adapted, using his speed to avoid hits rather than trying to power through them. Early in his rookie season, Perreault struggled. The physical play was wearing him down, and the pressure of being the face of a new franchise was immense. The Sabres, as expected, were losing many games, and Perreault felt personally responsible. That's when his teammate Eddie Shack, known as the Entertainer, stepped in. "Eddie showed me how to be a professional," Perreault later said. "He taught me that you can work hard and still enjoy the game." With Shack's guidance, Perreault regained his confidence and returned to his natural game, using his skill and speed to create scoring chances. By the end of his rookie season, he had scored 38 goals and added 34 assists. Impressive numbers for a first-year player on an expansion team. He won the Calder Trophy as Rookie of the Year, proving his style could not only survive in the NHL, but excel. Perreault's first big moment in the NHL came with the French Connection line. The Sabres put him together with Rick Martin and René Robert, creating one of hockey's most exciting lines ever. All three players were French-Canadian, and their chemistry was instant. They didn't just play together, they seemed to read each other's minds on the ice. In their first game as a line in 1972, they scored 5 goals against the St. Louis Blues. Perreault led the way with 2 goals and 2 assists. The Buffalo fans went crazy, and suddenly everyone was talking about this new line. The local newspaper called them the French Connection after a popular movie at the time, and the name stuck. This was exactly what the Sabres needed. In just their second season, they had something special that no other team could match. The French Connection wasn't just scoring goals, they were doing it with style. Perreault would dance through defenders, Martin would snipe shots from anywhere, and Robert would always be in the right spot at the right time. Their success changed everything for Buffalo hockey. Home games started selling out, kids in Buffalo started copying Perreault's moves on frozen ponds. Even fans who didn't know much about hockey could appreciate how special this line was. The French Connection turned Buffalo into a real hockey city. For Perreault personally, this was his moment to shine. He wasn't just a good rookie anymore. He was the center of one of the NHL's best lines. In the 1972-73 season, his first full year with Martin and Robert, he scored 88 points in 78 games. Teams started planning their whole game around stopping the French Connection, but most nights they couldn't do it. This success proved that Punch Imlach was the turning point came in a game against Montreal. The Canadiens were known for shutting down skilled players, but that night Perreault played differently. He drew defenders to him, then quickly passed to his teammates. When the Canadiens backed off, worried about his passing, he used his speed to attack. He finished the game with 2 goals and 3 assists in a 6-4 win. Tonight, we saw a new Gilbert Perreault, his coach said after the game. He's not just skilled anymore, he's smart about how he uses his skills. This was the lesson Perreault needed. Talent alone wasn't enough in the NHL. You had to know when to use it. From that point on, he found the perfect balance between his natural flair and smart hockey, becoming even more dangerous than before. With his new style of play mastered, Perreault entered his peak years, starting in the 1974-75 season. That year, he led the Sabres to their first Stanley Cup Finals. During the playoff run, he scored one of the most famous goals in hockey history, skating through the entire Montreal team and scoring while falling down. The goal was so impressive that even Montreal fans stood up to cheer. The Sabres lost the finals to Philadelphia, but Perreault's performance showed he was now one of the NHL's best players. He finished the year with 96 points and made his first All-Star team. He's not just good anymore, Philadelphia's coach Fred Sherro said. He's unstoppable. The next season, 1975-76, was even better. Perreault put up 113 points, becoming the first Sabre to break the 100-point mark. He did it in style, scoring highlight reel goals almost every night. In one game against Boston, he spun away from 3 defenders and scored while falling, a move that players still try to copy today. The French Connection line was at its best during this time. In a game against Toronto in 1976, they combined for 14 points, still a Sabres record for one line in a single game. Perreault led the way with 5 assists, showing he could make his teammates better too. 1976-77 was when Perreault proved he belonged with hockey's all-time greats. He scored 95 points in 72 games and led the league in highlight reel plays. Fans would stand up whenever he touched the puck, knowing something amazing might happen. His biggest moment came in February 1977 against Detroit. The Sabres were down by 3 goals late in the third period. Perreault took over the game, scoring twice and setting up 3 more goals in just 8 minutes. The Sabres won 6-4, and the Detroit coach said it was the best performance I've ever seen by one player. By 1979, Perreault had become the face of hockey in Buffalo. That year, he reached 1,000 career points faster than any player in Sabres history. He did it in style, scoring 2 goals and adding 3 assists in an 8-3 win over Montreal. The crowd gave him a 10-minute standing ovation. What makes Gilbert special isn't just his scoring, his coach Floyd Smith said. It's how he scores. He makes hockey look like art. During his peak years from 1974 to 1980, Perreault scored more than 90 points 6 times. He made the All-Star team every year and set records that still stand today. Most points in a season by a Sabre, 113. Most consecutive games with a point, 28. Most assists in one period, 4. Most goals in Sabres history, 512. But more than the numbers, it was how Perreault played that made him special. In an era when hockey was getting more physical and defensive, he showed that skill and creativity could still win games. He didn't just score goals. He scored goals that people would talk about for years. He made hockey fun to watch and turned Buffalo into one of hockey's most passionate cities. Perreault's impact on hockey went far beyond his statistics. While other players in the 1970s focused on being tough and physical, he showed that skill and creativity could win games too. His style of play opened the door for smaller, faster players to succeed in the NHL. Teams started looking for players who could skate and handle the puck like Perreault, rather than just picking the biggest, strongest players. In 1990, the Hockey Hall of Fame welcomed him in his first year of eligibility. The Sabres retired his number 11, and it now hangs in the rafters of their arena. Even today, When people talk about the most skilled players ever, Perreault's name always comes up. Wayne Gretzky, the greatest hockey player ever, said watching Perreault helped him develop his own style. His biggest legacy might be what he did for hockey in Buffalo. Before Perreault, Buffalo wasn't really a hockey city, but his exciting play style got people interested in the sport. Even today, Buffalo is known as one of the best hockey cities in America, and that started with Perreault. Young players still watch old videos of his moves, trying to learn how he did it. Modern stars like Patrick Kane and Connor McDavid have said they studied Perreault's stick handling when they were kids. He showed that hockey could be beautiful, not just rough and tough. As his old coach Punch Imlach said, Gilbert didn't just play hockey, he made it into an art form. Want to see more stories about hockey legends? Hit subscribe and ring that bell. Drop a comment below telling us your favorite Gilbert Perreault moment or which hockey legend you want to hear about next. And if you enjoyed this video, smash that like button. It really helps out the channel. See you in the next one.